If you've been publishing podcasts for any amount of time, you probably know this feeling. You've finished all the work, you've done the recording, you've done the editing, and you've just hit publish. And there's somewhere deep inside of you that thinks, maybe this is the one. Maybe this is the one that people resonate with and that they feel like, wow, things are taking off and I want to know more from this person. The more you've done this, the more you know and start to push that voice away, because that hope that's baked into the early workflow and then the crash like a week or so later of realizing that hope alone isn't going to work and that this is going to take more than that is really disappointing. As I've gone through this over the last 8 months or so of being on this side of the microphone and publishing and producing my own podcast episodes, I've gotten to know this feeling quite well. And understanding just this idea of hope that things are going to be different this time and that surely things are going to start to click. And realizing that hope alone is not a marketing strategy. I had this epiphany, and I've recently tied it into podcasting, but I had this epiphany of small things building up into big outcomes a while ago. I think this epiphany hit me a few years ago, but a few years ago I was in my hometown visiting family, and I was thinking about my grandmother's business. She's a fairly successful businesswoman, and what I was reflecting on was her real estate portfolio and how she'd built that up over time, and how it had started for her was with purchasing one house and kind of being intentional about saving up money and putting a good tenant in there and creating a process that she could do over and over again and do regularly, and save up and purchase another property and do the same thing with that, and then just continue to grow through the years of her life. It wasn't that she sat down and bought this whole swath of property and her whole portfolio in one go. She really was intentional about starting small and building. And so the realization there for me was that these small actions really have these big impacts for us. And for me as a podcaster specifically, but even in broader terms, my MO, or the way that I like to operate, is these big, grand gestures that are going to, in my mind, create that hope and that idea that maybe this is the one where if I do this big thing, then things are going to take off. But as I'm growing older and as I'm studying other people's success, I'm realizing the truth of the matter is that small, intentional steps are what add up to create the big, large whole and that change the trajectory. Sure, there's, could be one moment in someone's life that kind of unveil all that work, but if you haven't been putting in that intentional work day by day, little by little, then you're not going to be getting to where you want to go to. And if you accidentally happen to get to where you want to go to and you haven't done all this stuff, all these little steps along the way, it's just going to be a nightmare, honestly. So if you're new here to the podcaster's journey, my name is Caleb, and this is a podcast where I'm just trying to help you grow your podcast that actually builds something meaningful, that helps you tell stories in a way that connects with people, that promotes your vision, that promotes what you're trying to build, and do it in a way that's sustainable and that avoids burnout. In this episode specifically, you're going to be learning how to rethink podcast promotion and how to do this without hope, but with an actual strategy and an actual angle and something that's intentional that you can repeat each week. I'm going to walk you through a simple framework of a couple of questions that are going to help you filter things out. And you're going to walk away with these 2 questions that are going to change how you write and share your episodes. I'm excited. It's something that I've added to my workflow, and I'm eager to hear how it helps you in your workflow. So let's jump into this today. So if you want your podcast to grow and you're trying to be intentional about it, and even if you're a creative entrepreneur or a coach and you want it to grow like a business, then we have to stop publishing and hoping, just kind of throwing spaghetti against the wall, seeing what's going to fit, and start planting intentional and positioning with clarity. So if you're not into gardening, then this spring I might encourage you to get into gardening. Not that you need more on your plate, but this analogy comes to me from gardening, and I want to share it with you. Every episode that we produce and publish and send out into the world is a seed that we are planting. And if you've done any kind of gardening, you know that growing a plant from seed through germination into bearing fruit, it takes time, one, and two, it takes a specific environment that's going to be successful for that seed. We need water, we need sunlight, we need good soil for this to grow in. So if we just throw that seed out into the cold and hope that it grows, if you've done any gardening, you know how well that works. It's not going to work out very well. And it's no different with our podcast episodes. When we create an episode, we need to be intentional about where we're planting this episode, what kind of soil we're putting it into, how much water we're giving it, and what kind of sunlight and environment we're placing this seed and this growing plant within. It's not something we just cast out there kind of willy-nilly or casually and hope for good results. So part of how we're going to do that is positioning what we want from the episode before we ever even script it, before we ever even promote it. And these are the two questions that I alluded to before. The first question is, what do I want this to do for the listener? So people really only care about what you are doing, and in the sense that how it can help them thrive or survive. I picked this up through studying Donald Miller's story brand frameworks. And if you're looking for, side note, not to get you totally distracted, but if you're looking for a good book to pick up on marketing, StoryBrand is a fantastic place to start. So when we start here, we're asking, what do I want this to do for the listener? You're being intentional about the journey that you want to take the listener on. You're being intentional about the experience that you want the listener to have in this episode. And if you do that before you've even started scripting the episode, you're much more likely to hit that target rather than hoping that you land there. Because honestly, how can you ever even land there if you haven't thought about where you want the end game goal to be? If you don't know what you're aiming at, how can you create content that's going to actually provide value for people, for your listeners? So that's question number one. And then question number two is, what do I want this to do for the podcast? What do I want this to do for what I'm trying to build here? Again, if we're not starting with the end in mind and trying to work backwards, how in the world are we going to hit where we want to hit if we're not being intentional and taking aim and firing at that goal regularly? So these two questions, they're just a great filter for everything that you do, for the titles that you make for your podcast, for the calls to action that you make for your podcast, to the clips that you make for your podcast, the copy, the captions, all those things. These two questions become a filter that you can run everything through so that you can think about, is this going to help solve anything? And if it is going to solve something for the listener, what do I want the listener to do from here? Do I want them to listen to another episode? Do I want them to come join some coaching course or something else that I'm providing? Do I want them to buy some software product that I'm getting at? You want to be intentional about that. For promoting the podcast, if you're on social media and you're creating a post to promote it, we want to be thinking about these two questions as well. What do I want this listener to do? The answer is a little bit simpler there. We don't have to think so hard. We want this piece of content to promote the episode, and we want the listener to go and listen to the episode. But before we get to, what we want to do let me try to rephrase that. That is what we want the listener to do. We want them to go and listen from this piece of promotional content. But why are they going to do that is the question that's underneath that and that's buried. And that's where it comes into providing real value, providing and understanding the journey that we want to take for the listener. And social media is going to be really short, sweet, and to the point. But why are they going to want to come and listen to that episode? By listening to the piece of promotion that you have. What do we want this piece of promotional content to do for the podcast? Well, we want it to position us as a key person of influence or as somebody that knows what they're talking about and has value to share in the podcast space in that topic, so that the people who are looking for that information and looking for that help are going to go listen. So that's how it becomes a nice filter for everything. And when you answer them consistently, your podcast starts to build into something real, something that people can feel, whether it's conscious or subconscious. They understand, I I really want to listen to more to what this guy or girl has to say here. I really want to understand their frameworks. I want to understand how they view and see this. It's been really helpful for me. So the more you do this, it just compounds and builds on itself. To take it back to the gardening analogy, it's kind of like composting, where the more we put in, the better it gets, the richer the soil is. And through that process, you become someone that people want to follow. Not just somebody that they want to listen to once, but they actually value what you put out, and they want to be a part of that journey with you and take you with them. Because you become this, to borrow from the story brand framework again, you become this sort of guide in their journey. They're the hero of their story. And that's a key thing that you have to remember, is that they're the hero of their own story. You're not the hero of their story. They're the hero of the story, and they're looking for a guide who's going to help them understand the journey ahead of them and navigate that journey and help them get the transformation they're looking for in their life. And that goes back to this survive or thrive kind of model. So what do we do this week then? This week, here's what I want you to do, and your actionable takeaway is take these 2 questions, obviously, and try to work them into your scripting process for your podcast this week for the episode. But as far as marketing, because that's what we're talking about, is how to market this podcast like a business, I want you to pick just one marketing rhythm, just one, that's repeatable, and that's the way that you'll share this week. Remember that done is better than perfect here. That is so important and so crucial. I want to share a little bit of empathy with you if you're feeling burnt out, because when I started this podcast, I had this huge marketing plan and all the different types of copy and promotional assets that I was going to create from every episode, because I wanted to nail every episode and get as much bang for my buck out of every episode that I created. And I will tell you, after about 90 days of doing that, I was totally burnt out, and I stopped altogether, basically. I just quit promoting it, and I just started hoping that things would take off. And my numbers have suffered, I'm going to be honest. So I can tell you that is not the route to go. The route to go is to build systems around yourself that to do things that you can do weekly and repeatably to market your podcast. So this week, I want you to just pick one repeatable way. Maybe that's getting on Instagram and talking about your episode for a 1-minute story or 30-second story to promote it, and just share a link to your podcast. And then do that every single week. Once that becomes routine, or you've built a system around it that it happens automatically, then pick one more thing. But for now, don't even worry about picking something in the future. Just pick this one thing right now and focus only on that. I feel like to be accountable to you guys and fix my own promotion that is a little broken at the moment, I'm going to commit to sharing every time I publish, jumping on a story, and doing exactly that. So that's what I'm going to do. If you're following me on Instagram, you can watch for that every Monday night or Tuesday morning after the episode has gone live, either pre-promoting on Monday night or promoting the morning it's gone live, just sharing a link and a quick story with a quick synopsis of why people should listen, what journey I want the listener to take, and what that's going to do for the podcast, filtering it through those 2 questions. And remember that this is going to just continue to build something of value the more you do this for your podcast. That's the whole reason you want to do it. It's not to impress me or anybody else. It's just to build this principle of actually getting the results that you want to from your podcast. And if you want to do it, it takes work. Here's a framework. Go use it. Please, I'm asking you to. So as we're wrapping up today, if this episode got your wheels turning and you're ready to start building your show with more intention, that's what I built the Podcaster's Engine is designed for. So this is a Notion template that I'm designing and developing, and in the midst of, near the end of developing, but I want to share it with you here first. So if you're listening to this episode and it sounds like something that could be beneficial to you, then I want you to reach out, and I'd love to share with you early access. This is a template that goes from idea all the way through promotion with direct steps, checklists, prompts to help you write a better script, checklists to help you make sure you're promoting things. But not in the burnout type of way. This is a checklist that's meant and designed to help you create rhythm, to help you beat burnout, and just to help you create consistency that feels like going in a circle, but the way I've described it in there and the way I'm trying to continue to develop the analogy is that it's not just a circle. If we look at it from the top down, it looks like a circle and it looks like we're not going anywhere. But if you look at it from the sideways, you can see that this circle, it is a circle, but it's moving upwards, and it's an upward positive spiral. I'm sure you've heard the terminology of a negative downward spiral. Well, the podcaster's engine is designed and built to be an upward positive cycle for you, for podcasters in general, who the more that they put their effort and time into this tool, the more they're going to get back out, and the more it's going to create that fertile soil. And it's just got all the pieces in there that help you make sure you have good soil, to make sure that you're fertilizing your show, to make sure that you're getting the water and the nutrients and the sunlight that your show needs to, and every episode needs to grow. And it helps you do it in a consistent way so that every episode is getting the same treatment, but in a way that's not centered around burnout. I've really been intentional about trying to create that because, I'll be honest, trying to keep this podcast going is tough. It's challenging. And so I'm just trying to create a tool that averts that burnout, that helps make this process easier. So if you're interested, hit me up, and I would love to share that with you. As a secondary call to action, if you're looking for a great companion episode to this episode to learn more and to just kind of continue on your journey of becoming a better podcaster and getting the results you want out of your podcast, I'd invite you to check out episode 29. There's just, that one walks through how I rebuilt my show intentionally to create connection, traction, and momentum. So I'd love for you to go check out that episode if that's something you're interested in. So to wrap up today, you don't need a full-blown marketing plan today. You don't need that on day 1. You don't even need that on day 50. If you're on your 50th episode and you're not where you want to be, you still don't need that full-blown marketing plan. You need to start where it's reasonable and doable for you. And for right now, we've talked about it. That's picking one item to do every week and creating a rhythm and doing it every week. And remember, you just want to ask better questions. You want to be more intentional and align yourself to your mission and your purpose for your podcast and the journey you're trying to take your listeners on. Because again, remember, we talked about them being the hero and you're the guide. You're guiding them along the journey, in their journey. And last, but definitely not least, is plant with purpose and position with clarity. I'm in your corner. I'm cheering for you. Until next week, happy podcasting.